Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we are tracking storms across the plains, across the East Coast, and even portions of the Rockies. We have all hazards on the board today and a brand new upgraded risk to an enhanced, a level 3 risk, especially for that high wind, large hail, and tornadoes in the plains. So we'll get into that right now. Here's your headlines. Upgraded risk for the Dakotas. We've got that level 3. Now the storms out in the Carolinas today and then across the East Coast as far north as New York, we could see some really high wind. That'll be your biggest risk, as well as that flooding risk, okay? And then those high winds will continue. You know, we have high winds for today and tomorrow, and they're going to continue as we head into the middle to end of the work week here. We also have that tornado risk this week. We're having a little clicker issue, but I'm going to fix that right now, and then we will go ahead and get started on your forecast today. Alrighty, what about now? Haha, there you go. There's the clicker. You know, what is it? A Wednesday? I feel like everyone's kind of in that midweek slump. Hump day, right? Anyone remember those commercials? Hump day? Did it ring a bell to you? Do you feel some nostalgia from hearing that? Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. On your storm reports yesterday, high wind. Okay, we nailed this wind forecast yesterday. We saw some high wind across places like Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and as far north as Philadelphia. Yeah, we even saw a tornado report, or a tornado warning rather, 3 tornado warnings across Philadelphia yesterday. That was mainly in the afternoon and evening hours, and then later on in the evening we saw some extreme wind across the southern portion of Oklahoma. 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts in this area. Absolutely insane wind, okay? We could see something like this that we saw in Oklahoma yesterday. We could see that again today. We also saw flooding across New Mexico and Chicago yesterday, where ongoing flood rescues were a very, very big topic of discussion after Chicago got about 5.5 inches of rain within about 90 minutes yesterday. Now, this Chicago flood that we saw was a 1 in 200 year flood. Again, that only happens once in about the span of 200 years, so it's quite significant to be seeing something that intense. Alrighty, moving on to what we're seeing today. We do have several severe thunderstorm warnings ongoing right now across Virginia and across West Virginia and Virginia right now. You can see that highlighted there in yellow. We've got another one highlighted in yellow. Now, marginally severe right now, but we are expecting those high winds likely again today, right? So let's break that down for you. We have 3 areas of concern. 1, across the northern plains. The 2nd, across the northern Rockies. And the 3rd, out to the east, where we can see that flooding issue along the mid-Atlantic. Right now, pretty quiet out there. A few showers and storms going on right now. Nothing severe in Houston, nothing severe in Texas. However, we still have a low flood risk out in Texas today. Current temperatures are sitting in the 80s and 90s. I could tell as I walked my dog this morning that it was going to be a hot day. Does anyone else feel that as you step out the door and you're like, oh, I can already tell today is going to be a toasty one? You've got lots of moisture in the air for a good portion of our southern states, and all of that moisture is also helping to feed into these storms today. Got some pretty warm temperatures in this area as well, so some very buoyant particles in the atmosphere. And what happens to those particles is just like a hot air balloon. They rise into the atmosphere, and you guys know the drill here. What goes up must come down. And the risks today is from those storms that are coming down includes a large hail risk, several tornadoes, and a high wind risk. So that is why the National Weather Service, or Storm Prediction Center, upgraded this risk to a level 3, an enhanced risk across the northern plains. We also have an area across the northern Rockies and an area out to the east across the mid-Atlantic. Now, you could even include a 4th area in here in Michigan, where we could see some high wind today. Tomorrow, I know that we have a lot of people asking about the central to northern plains tomorrow. What we're talking about tomorrow is mainly a tornado and hail threat in this area, so we'll have an eye on your future radar for that as well. I know someone was asking about that yesterday. I do have the future radar for tomorrow pulled up for one of your graphics today, so we'll get to that. Let's take a look at the hail risk today. This is the most significant hail risk I have seen in the last week or two. What we're watching for here are those deeper colors getting into those oranges and reds, and we are seeing that right through the Dakotas today. You can see some of those deeper orange hues in here. Yeah, it looks pretty impressive across both North and South Dakota. So what are we talking about for your largest hail risk for today? I think that we could get up to baseball size hail. I think that's absolutely possible, 2.75 inches. For your largest hailstone. Where? Where are we expecting that? Again, North and South Dakota. So we've got Pierre in there, we've got Grand Forks, we've got Kearney, Nebraska, Colby, Kansas, and Wichita, Kansas, all on the map today. Again, largest hailstones right in this area, highlighted in red, where we could see golf ball to tennis ball size hail. Now let's take a look at your risk. So here we go into high risk and Pierre. Kearney also in that high risk zone. So where are we going to see the largest hail? Most likely in these areas. The farther north and east that you go, Grand Forks, you've got a lower chance for large hail, and even down into Wichita, pretty low chance to even get rain in Wichita today. What about that tornado forecast? Tornado risk across North and South Dakota. Again, right in the center of South Dakota is where we are watching for the greatest tornado risk. It still sits at a level 1, but it's still something that you should be, keeping an eye on as we get into these afternoon and evening storms. So I think that we're going right into our timeline here. Let's go into the timeline. Maybe. The clicker's taking a while to wake up today. We've got our wind forecast first. Yes, high wind expected for today. We could see those strong wind gusts up to 75 to 80 miles an hour this afternoon. Again, the best chance right in the center portion of South Dakota here. Pierre, South Dakota is what we're watching for high wind levels, but we could still see some high wind up to 75 miles an hour from Charlotte all the way up to Philadelphia. So a lot of people in the path for that high wind today. Now let me tell you something about the rain and the wind in this area. What happens in this area is that we have had rain from the tropical storm early this week, right? We had rain yesterday in this area. We're going to have rain again today. So the soil is moist and it's very loose right now. So if we've got that loose soil, any little bit of wind can knock over those trees, can knock down those power lines, and we could see some power outages across this area as we head into the afternoon hours. We could also see some trees down in this area as well. So keep an eye on those storm reports today. We, of course, will be watching those for you as well and alerting you of any big traffic issues because of the weather today. Now let's talk about timeline. Storms are likely to fire late this afternoon. So we'll start to see those first few isolated storms after about 3 o'clock today. Again, best chance for storms down in South Dakota, but you could see a few more isolated storms up to the southern side of North Dakota and even down into Nebraska. We're going to start to see a weakening trend as we head into the late evening hours. So likely to see those storms start to weaken, reducing the risk for tornadoes, reducing the risk for large hail later on in the evening as the sun goes down. Here you go. Here's your view of Nebraska today. You've got that central to southern portion of Nebraska with maybe some high wind across I-80 into the late night hours as well. Anytime that we see this linear convective system, we could see some high wind with that as well, especially this time of the year. Alrighty, taking a look at your flood outlook today. Hey, check out the East Coast. We do have a level 3 risk for flooding today. Rapid flash flooding possible across the East Coast today. Yesterday, some of these areas got up to 4 inches of rain. Now you could get another 3 inches of rain. That is that really brings on flash flooding very, very quickly in this area. So again, if you are highlighted in red, you definitely need to take those flood concerns seriously. If you see a flood warning or a flash flood warning in your area, make sure you are checking the traffic before you head out. And you guys know the drill here. Turn around, don't drown. When in doubt, take another route. You don't want to drive into any flooded roadways that you cannot see all the way through. Now moving into your future radar for Texas today. Again, we have another flood risk down in central Texas today. It's a level 1, but it's still something to be talked about. And really what that level 1 is for are these very isolated storms that at times could have some brief heavy rain pockets. Okay, so we could have pockets of heavy rain very briefly in these storms that could bring on some flash flooding. It's a low risk. It'll be very, very isolated, but it's still something to mention today. I know we had some flooding reported across Houston yesterday. We're going to see that once again today as well, so I think they are also included in that level 1 risk. Alrighty, so there's your risk for storms today. We have another risk for storms tomorrow as well. With this comes a flooding risk for tomorrow. Here's your storm risk for tomorrow. Okay, what did I tell you guys? I told you that I would show you your future radar for those storms tomorrow. Let's get right into that. Here you go. Here's your future radar. Here we go. 7 a.m. What do we have on here? A few storms starting in the morning hours. Not terribly concerned about those. It'll really be these afternoon, evening storms. You can see they start out pretty isolated across the central portion of the state, but then become a lot more widespread as we head into the late evening and even overnight hours tomorrow. So you could get a lot of rain from this, some high wind, large hail, and that tornado risk for storms late on Thursday and into early Friday morning. One more time, zooming down into that spot that I think will have the most likelihood for tornadoes tomorrow and large hail right through the central portion of Nebraska and even into western portion of Iowa. So again, this area right here, we could see pretty good chance for several tornadoes and large hail tomorrow. We also have a risk for storms across the East Coast, both South and North Carolina, in the path for storms, that level 2, that slight risk for tomorrow as well. Looking ahead to Friday, we have another round of storms across the Central Plains and into the northern portion of the Mississippi Valley. And then we've also got some storms across the East Coast. Man, it feels like this area just gets hit day after day after day. You're going to have a flooding risk there over and over and over. So look at this. We've got a level 2 flooding risk across the North Carolina and Virginia tomorrow. We've got a flooding risk for several people on Friday, but I do want to call out Oklahoma and Kansas on Saturday. Yes, if your weekend plans include anything outdoors, you can get outside this time of the year. It may be a wet one. Yes, it looks like we've got a level 2 flooding risk on Saturday across Oklahoma and Kansas. We're looking pretty far out here. So make sure that you are coming back for your forecast tomorrow and Friday, and we'll give you more information on those storms that we're expecting this weekend. Any questions before we head into our temperatures? I see a few questions on here. We've got Chipper asking about Texas, New Mexico, and Chicago. Are the floods in Texas, New Mexico, and Chicago anomalies? Yeah, well, I would say Chicago, absolutely. Yes, this is not something that we see every day, right? An anomaly is something that sticks out of the ordinary, right? Not something that we would normally see either this time of the year or this frequent. Yeah, the storms last night in Chicago produced a flood that happens once in every 200 years. It's a 1 in 200 year flood. Yeah, I would absolutely call these anomalies. This is not something that happens every day. Thankfully, it is not something that happens very frequently at all. What I would say is happening right now is we have some very slow moving storms with a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. So that storm is going to sit on top of you for a long time, bringing a lot of water very, very quickly. And now you could get maybe 5 inches of rain over the span of a day, 2 days, and not have any flooding issues. However, whenever you get 5 inches of rain in 90 minutes, where does all of that water go? It all accumulates very, very quickly, especially on the roadways, especially in a very populated and concrete area like Chicago, and you are absolutely going to have some flooding issues. Great question coming in from YouTube. Are these flooding issues that we're having across Chicago and New Mexico, are they anomalies? Yeah, I think they absolutely are. I love these questions. This question asking, how do we see the radar on TV, but it's a green screen? This is something that I get asked all the time, right? This wall right here, I look at it, it's green. You look at it, it's graphics. Basically what the computer does is it takes this color of green and it says anywhere we see that color of green, we're gonna put a graphic on top of it. So if I were to wear green, if I have green nails, then it would key out and it would show graphics on top of, my nails or my dress if it had anything green on it. I'm trying to look around to see if I could give you an example of that, but I don't see any green in our studio today. We try to keep the green out of the studio so it doesn't key out. Great question. Alrighty, I think those are all of our questions for today. We do have a trough attempting to move into the central portion of the U.S. That's going to keep us pretty active across this area into the weekend. Again, we were talking about that rain down in Oklahoma and Kansas this weekend. A lot of that will be encouraged by this trough that's moving through. Temperature-wise, we actually do see a little bit of a cool down across the central portion of the U.S. You can see some of those cooler temperatures moving in by Friday, maybe even Saturday. How cool are we talking? Well, if we hit the mid-90s today, let's see, what do we see tomorrow? Tomorrow, we're back into the mid-upper 90s. Ooh, it's hot across the plains tomorrow. What about Friday? Friday, we see a little bit of a cool down. Yeah, a little bit, a few degrees cooler. Now, whenever we talk about a cool down this time of the year, it doesn't mean that temperatures are colder or even chilly. It just means that they're cooler than average, right? So let's say our average here in Oklahoma is 90 degrees this time of the year. Well, hey, we're cooler than average. We're sitting at 85. That's still hot out there. That's still toasty. But thankfully, we continue this average or cooler than average trend all the way into the middle of July. So we're talking about the 14th through the 18th here. We do see temperatures across the entire plains just a little bit cooler than average. Now, we're bookended by some warmer temperatures. It's still hot on the west coast. It's still hot on the east coast as well. What concerns me about our extended outlooks here is that dry air, the lack of rainfall that we're expecting across the west coast. So not only do we have warm temperatures out there, warmer than average temperatures out there, but we also have less rainfall than what we normally get this time of the year. That is going to encourage that fire danger to increase as we head into the middle of July. Meanwhile, the rest of the U.S., we have a lot of rainfall coming our way all the way through the central portion of the U.S. and out to the east. A very common thing that we have seen over the last week or two, where it seems to rain just day after day after day in several areas across the U.S. Now, this cool down is not going to last long. It does look like temperatures will warm back up as we head into the end of July, maybe even into August. It always feels like once temperatures cool down and we get a brief break, we end up paying for it later. We get those warm 100-degree temperatures later on. And I think those are all of the questions that I see on here. I do see one question about Denver. I will go ahead. We did already mention it, but I'll comment in the Facebook comment section and give you a forecast for Denver. I'm pretty good about getting back to those comments after the forecast. I spend about an hour responding to things after the forecast. Alrighty, I think those are all of our questions today. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox. We have a forecast every day at noon. Now tomorrow I'll have a little bit of time off, so you'll see Heather in this spot tomorrow, but I'll be back here on Friday for your next forecast. We'll see you then.